Another monster night for the Colorado Avalanche. They right now cannot be stopped. The Lightning are also surging, winning another. They stifled the Rangers in their third game in 4 days, plus a nightmare for the Mammoth. How much trouble are they in if Logan Cooley is out long term? All that and more coming up on tonight's edition of Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before, only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Evening or good morning, hockey fans, wherever it is you're joining us from. Welcome into Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. Your teams every day. Thanks for making Locked On NHL Game Night your place to get a recap of all the night's action in the NHL during the regular season and the playoffs, whether it's for one game, 16, or everything in between. We are here for you with the latest, and we'll have all the stories and much more available. Our show is available wherever it is you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Alex Wiederspiel. I write about hockey for Yardbarker, and I hang here at nights on Locked On NHL Game Night. He is Shukri Wrights from 97.5 The Fanatic. Here on Game Night, you can get the latest on all the goals, saves, big moments, and stories from the night in the NHL with a big assist from our Locked On local experts. Shu, I wonder, could we be due potentially for a Stanley Cup Finals rematch of a few seasons ago? Right now, maybe the two hottest teams in hockey, the Colorado Avalanche and the Tampa Bay Lightning, continue to win.
It could very possibly happen. But right now, if you ask me if that ended up being the case, who would I pick? I would say Colorado. Colorado is playing, I think, at an even better level than they did back in 2021, 2022 when they won the Stanley Cup. But man, like that Colorado team, they're looking more and more like a wagon right now, and it's scary.
Oh, for sure. We're going to get into that here in, actually right now. We're going to get into that first off. Colorado with a big win as they wore their Nordique jerseys and they beat up on another Quebec team, the Montreal Canadiens. A 7-2 final in this one. The shutout streak for Mackenzie Blackwood ends at 174 minutes in this one. But outside of that, it's all Colorado. Big days for Brock Nelson and Gabriel Landeskog. And let's hear from, before we get into anything, let's hear from Zach Pearson of Locked On Colorado Avalanche for his take on Colorado's crazy run to start this season. Believe that's now one regulation loss in 25 games.
The Colorado Nordiques skate a victory over the Montreal Canadiens 7-2 today on the back of 2-goal performances from both Gabe Landeskog and Brock Nelson. Brock Nelson had himself a phenomenal game, it seemed like, just from the get-go. And even though he did have 1 goal taken off of him and given to Gabe Landeskog, he still performed phenomenally. And a lot of fans in the stands thought that he had himself a hat trick and let their hats fly, even though he did not quite get one. As I said, Gabe Landeskog also with a great game, 2 goals and an assist for him. He played absolutely excellent once again and is showing just how much heart he has in doing everything that he does for the Colorado Avalanche. Mackenzie Blackwood got the start today, was tested a little bit early, but stood tall, only letting 2 goals past. His shutout streak does come to an end, but 173 minutes, I believe, was the total of shutout time for Blackwood before letting in that goal. All around, a super fun game again from the Colorado Avalanche, and we can't wait to see what this team continues to do throughout this season.
Shu, when the Chicago Blackhawks won their second Stanley Cup in the Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews era, it was in the abbreviated 48-game season. Do you know how many games it took for them to have their first regulation loss that season?
I believe it was 24, because I unfortunately remember that season fondly. And I say unfortunately because they beat my Boston Bruins in the Cup final that year.
And I'm sorry for bringing that back up. I guess I had forgotten about.
Alex.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that part of it. I do. It was, I believe it was actually, I'm double checking, making sure I'm right about this. It was the 25th game They lost
It was
2.
1 game short, but yeah, it was around that number.
But yeah, but you almost, I mean, the fact that you pulled out 1 away, that's pretty darn good from that long ago. They lost to the Colorado Avalanche 6-2 in the 25th game of the season. That was their first regulation loss. I get that going 18-1-6 is not as impressive as going 21-1-3. But I have to just say, wow, what a start for Colorado. And it's not just that they're winning. It's games like this. It's the way they're winning. Everyone seems to be contributing, and now you're seeing Gabe Landeskog, who had this very slow start to the season scoring-wise. He's getting involved. Brock Nelson getting involved with 2 points in, or I'm sorry, did Brock Nelson have 4 points in this one, actually? He had 2 goals, 2 assists in this one. Big acquisition for them at last year's trade deadline. I'm honestly running out of superlatives for Colorado's first third of the season.
It's really incredible when you begin to think about it, and I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible, but it's really astounding what we're witnessing right now. What the Colorado Avalanche are doing is not just the fact that they're winning games, and I agree, they're dominating. And then the part that impresses me the most isn't the fact that they're scoring goals in bunches, which they clearly and obviously have been doing, especially in this recent stretch, is the way that they've played defensively. Like, this team right now, and mark my words to the hockey world, this team reminds me a lot of that 2021-2022 Colorado Avalanche team that won the Stanley Cup in terms of how they defended. Because I remember that season, they really made a concerted effort to defend well in their own end, and they did. And they got away from that for the last few years. But this season, it's the offensive aspect, yes, but their ability to defend well and still get pretty darn good goaltending on top of that, especially from Mackenzie Blackwood, is scary stuff for the rest of the National Hockey League because they haven't peaked just yet. But man, Colorado right now, they're looking more and more like an absolute wagon.
The rest of the league doesn't look very good by comparison, except for Tampa Bay Lightning, who are surging. Yeah. Remember, we talked about it earlier this season. Could the demise of the Lightning be underway? They were in last place in the division for the first time. I don't even remember the stat anymore because it's now completely irrelevant, but it was the first time they'd been last place in the division in like 2018 or 2017 or even further back than that. But it hadn't happened in a very long time. Now they are 16-7-2, and they are at the top of the Atlantic Division. They have won 7 consecutive games. They are plus 19. And the craziest part, Shu, they have done all of this without a huge chunk of their teams. Guys have slowly started coming back. The guy who is still not back, though, and cannot come back for another week is Victor Hedman, who can't return from LTIR until December 5th. Tampa absolutely stifles the New York Rangers 4-1 in this one. The Lightning blocked more shots than the Rangers got on goal. Think about that for a second.
Wow.
The final number in this one, the Rangers with 12 shots. Tampa blocked 16 shots. The Rangers just couldn't get anything through. You're talking about defense. We don't typically associate that with the Lightning, but man, did they play really good defense in the Garden today.
Even in their heyday, and I was just kind of crazy to even say in their heyday at the beginning of the 2020s, like I didn't look at them as, oh, they were the golden standards of defensive hockey in the NHL. But what I did look at them as a team that played well when they had structure, and obviously having guys that are healthy and available plays a huge role into that. But what you're seeing with this current rendition of the Tampa Bay Lightning is a team that they are not only getting healthy at the right time, but they got guys coming back. And then also, what also impresses me is the fact that they've won 4 in a row without Braden Point, their captain, Victor Hedman, Eric Chernak, and Ryan McDonough, who, by the way, all of them are out with an injury. So I think that in itself is actually pretty impressive. And on top of that, I think it's the fact that they also have shown that the tremendous chemistry on the ice, like right now in this recent stretch, which I think is pretty impressive considering that the Lightning, they're the hottest team in the East, and it's a team that looks every bit of a team that's won 15 of this last 18 games, 15-3-0 in the stretch.
Wow. Let's jump over to a team that I thought could maybe challenge as an underdog or a dark horse in the Western Conference, but
Yeah.
that Cinderella story, the pumpkin may have just popped. Logan Cooley, is that what happens in Cinderella? I haven't seen that movie in a long time. St. Louis beats Utah 1-0, but that's not the biggest story of the night in
Yeah.
this game. Other than for St. Louis, congratulations on getting their second consecutive win for just the second time this season, dating all the way back to the opening week of the season when they won games 2 and 3 back to back. But the big story of this one, in a 1-0 loss for Utah in a game where they didn't play very well to begin with. In the third period, Logan Cooley goes down in a knee-on-knee injury, scary injury. Alexei Toropchenko gets called for the 5-minute major, gets tossed from the game, and the Blues kill the penalty, which was huge for the game, huge for their win, and maybe it'll be huge for their season. But right now, I got to ask this question. How much are you panicking if you're the Utah Mammoth on a scale of 1 to 10 after seeing Logan Cooley leave and not return and not be able to get off the ice under his own power?
I would be concerned. I mean, this was a team that, if you go back to the preseason, that I expected this team to be in the playoffs and make it a deep playoff run. And so far, like, they've had a lot that they've had to deal with in terms of their injuries and so forth. And I just think that, like, today's game was just bad timing in regards to the fact that they needed to, begin to right the ship, especially they're at the beginning of a 6-game road trip themselves. And, like, it's just tough to see them, struggle the way that they have offensively. And as well as the fact that, listen, it's not that they haven't gotten, like, decent goaltending. They got a good performance out of Vejmelka, who made 18 saves for the Mammoth. But at the same time, they need the offense to really, like, begin to pick up the pieces, to pick up the pace a little bit.
The Boston Bruins have one of the best goal scorers in the league right now, and his name isn't David Pastrnak. We're going to talk about that coming up on the other side of Locked On NHL Game Night's first break. We're back in a moment. Our show brought to you today in part by our friends over at Monarch. Let's be honest, most of us cannot name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track. That can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings you your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It's helped me organize my accounts, track my spending, get a better handle on investments without having to touch the dreaded spreadsheet. I love that I can review everything with my partner. We can see our shared goals, make better financial decisions together. She and I both know we need to do that. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. So there he is. What's up, Shu?
What's up?
The Boston Bruins get the win today against the Detroit Red Wings. This was an interesting one, Shu. Detroit kind of worked their way back into this game. Michael Rasmussen scores with fewer than 2 minutes left in regulation. Ultimately, Boston will get the win in the shootout. The two big stories as I see this: one, Detroit's fourth straight loss, but two, Morgan Geekie. And you could have written this off as a heater. You could have written this off as a fluke. You can still do that if you really want to, but we are a third of the way through Boston's season. Morgan Geekie is on pace for 60 goals. He's shooting 26% on the ice. It is unreal, man. What did they feed Morgan Geekie this offseason?
Honestly, nothing. Probably nothing special. But I would even go as far as to say this, that after what I saw last season when he scored 30-plus goals, I remember, thinking to myself, saying, if he could really add to his, his game, his repertoire somehow, some way, he could easily be a 30-goal scorer consistently in this league. And he's got 20 on the season already, and we're barely a quarter of the way through the regular season. So I'm really amazed by what we've seen in Morgan Geekie. And the thing is ever since he arrived in Boston, his offensive game has really taken off all to a whole nother level. And then on top of that, when you're playing alongside a guy like David Pastrnak, who's really developed terrifically into a playmaker in his own right, not just a goal scorer. Obviously, we know that Paz is a top 5 goal scorer in the league right now, but his ability to create offense for guys like Morgan Geekie, as I just mentioned, who's been a big beneficiary, in all of this too. So for Morgan Geekie's development, I'm not surprised. I'm just amazed seeing that the work that he put in over the summer, he certainly did put in a lot of work over the summer, is now translating furthermore into even more success offensively for the Boston Bruins.
Let's give Ian McLaren of Locked On Boston Bruins the final word on this one and the red hot Morgan Geekie.
It was the Morgan Geekie and Jeremy Swayman show in Boston on Saturday as the Bruins beat the Detroit Red Wings in a shootout thanks to 2 goals from Geekie, who now sits tied with Nathan MacKinnon for the league lead in goals with 20, and just some brilliant play from Jeremy Swayman, who has been rock solid this month, taking his save percentage from like 886 in October all the way up to 915 or so. He's just been unbelievable and a huge reason why the Bruins were able to keep the Red Wings at bay despite being without Charlie McAvoy and David Pastrnak, both of whom are injured. It was a rough and tumble affair, some fisticuffs, some big hits, and these two teams will play each other again in Detroit on Tuesday. And could be must-see TV the way things were getting crispy between these two clubs with 2 big points again on the line.
And, of course, a critical showdown in the division as well. Every point looks like it's going to matter in the Atlantic and the Metro with the way things are going right now. Yeah. Philadelphia and New Jersey, speaking of every point mattering, New Jersey right now at the top of the Metro division, and Philadelphia, believe it or not, the Flyers under Rick Tocchet, they are making a run here. They are giving chase, and this was their 3rd consecutive win, a 5-3 victory over the Jack Hughes-less New Jersey Devils, who are now 4-4 without their superstar forward. And Philadelphia gets the win. Let's hear from Rachel Donner of Locked On Philadelphia Flyers, and then we'll break this one down.
The Philadelphia Flyers held off the New Jersey Devils with a 5-3 win on the road in Newark. Hi, I'm Rachel Donner from Locked On Flyers. There was a crazy ending to this one with Owen Tippett earning his 101st career goal on an automatic award due to being tripped on an empty net breakaway. He scored his 100th earlier in the contest. The goal was his first in 6 games. Travis Konechny also got back on the board after 9 games being scoreless with a tally in this one. We also saw a jailbreak-style goal from Matvei Michkov coming out of the penalty box. He also made up for it later in the game with some key defensive work, which is unusual but good to see. Dan Vladar was in top form in this game with 28 saves on 31 shots, making some spectacular saves that kept the Flyers ahead in this one. It was important for the Flyers to avoid coughing up a 3-goal lead 2 games in the row. They were able to accomplish that, and now we move on to face Pittsburgh. We'll have more on both weekend matchups on the Monday show of the Locked On Flyers podcast.
Shu, all of a sudden the Philadelphia Flyers, they went from kind of being a curiosity to now all of a sudden very much having my interest. They look, I don't know what I want to say, they look like the real deal, but I don't think you can just write this team off as a fluke at this point.
You can say that they have been a real deal, and like Alex, I've been following this team pretty much throughout the entire regular season, and especially here in Philadelphia, and talking about it locally on 97.5 The Fanatic. This team has continued to prove to me time and time again that I genuinely believe that this is a playoff team this year and what has been a very tightly contested Eastern Conference. And what you're seeing during this stretch is nothing that really surprises me. And it's funny because, number one, Owen Tippett, who had been pretty streaky by and large throughout his career, especially this season, he's really beginning to pick it up offensively. He had 2 goals today. Matvei Michkov as well. He had got onto a slow start offensively, and today he had 2 goals as well. And I keep saying this. I said it before here on this show, and I'll say it again. What a pickup by Danny Briere, the general manager of the Philadelphia Flyers, acquiring Trevor Zegras, who has been probably one of the best free agent acquisitions the Flyers made like in recent memory, and he's been absolutely huge. So the Flyers continue to collect points in the East, and they've been very impressive to watch so far this season.
He's going to be on the short list. It's funny. This is escaping me at the moment. What do they call now the comeback player of the year in the NHL? Why is the name of this award escaping me?
No,
Didn't Carey Price
don't-
win it a couple of years ago?
I believe so, but I'm not entirely sure. But I
Okay.
believe he did. But continue.
He's got to be on the short list, right? Trevor Zegras has got to be on the short list for whatever version of that award exists in the NHL.
I believe so.
Yeah.
But he is in fact having himself quite the year, especially given that that he has a chance to play himself into having a long-term contract with the Flyers.
So I just double checked this. It's not officially called comeback player of the year, but the closest equivalent is the Masterton Memorial Trophy. So that's right, the Masterton. I got to think he's going to be on the short list for that one. Speaking of Philadelphia, they will be heading to face with Pittsburgh next. The Penguins struggled today against a Toronto team that has started to see their reinforcements come back. Guys are getting healthy. Austin Matthews, Matthew Nyes, Dennis Hildeby makes his first start since November 13th. And Toronto scored twice on their first 3 shots. And boy, have the Leafs struggled to start hot in games this season. They started hot in this one. They get the win 7-2. A healthy Austin Matthews, one of 3 Leafs with multi-point efforts in this one, Shu. And the Leafs are back to NHL 500. And every point they get at this point after the way they started the season is probably good. But it's the way they looked in this one that I think is going to at least enthuse some folks.
And it should, because listen, the Maple Leafs, they have been a team that have been struggling mightily, and I think that with the return of Austin Matthews, which is a welcome sight for sore eyes, um, I think that this is something that's going to bolster this Maple Leafs team that, let's face it, this season they have struggled to find consistency in their game, and it is huge to see like Austin Matthews score his first goal since returning from the lower body injury, but also it's also good to see like other parts of the lineup like chip in, like Oliver Ekman-Larsson, like for example, that they're chipping offensively. So I think that like the Maple Leafs, once they see that when you get more entries and making things happen, this is something that could turn into some good things happening for them.
Not a great game for the Minnesota Wild in this one. They've been battling some injuries as well. If not for sort of the heroic efforts of 2 of their best players, Kirill Kaprizov and Matthew Boldy, who have combined for combined for 32 goals this season. 17 for Kaprizov, 15 for Boldy. I don't know where the Wild would necessarily be right now. They have played better, obviously, of late. November has been fantastic for them after a really bad October. But games like today are a reminder that this team has a B and a C game that isn't great, as they probably got a better fate than they deserved, getting a point against Buffalo. Sabres outchanced them 12-3 in high danger, 20-14 overall. They were a full goal expected better at 5-on-5, according to Natural Stat Trick. So just really owning the possession battle, but the final 3-2 in a shootout, Buffalo gets the win. Josh Stone's third period goal, nice acquisition, by the way, for Buffalo, forces overtime following a scoreless second period. They win in the shootout. So Buffalo gets the win. Again, I don't want to rag on Minnesota. They've had a great month. It's just games like this, you got to walk into this one a little bit better than you played against Buffalo today.
I mean, you couldn't have said it any better. I feel like in one aspect, in terms of what the Buffalo Sabres did, number one, coming from behind the win, but then also like to see guys like Josh Doan, who continues to really make a name for himself with the Sabres. I think that this is a kind of win that for the Sabres you can really build on, and as well as like learn from. There were mistakes that were made on both of the goals that they allowed, but also like I think this is something that Buffalo will in fact learn from moving forward as well.
Yeah, Buffalo showing some resiliency because there are going to be games like this where you feel like you're the better team and you don't always get the result until you fight for it. That said, we'll talk more about the last games. We're going to head out to the West Coast where there were a bunch of actually really good games we'll get to, including Vegas and San Jose, which was a lot of fun. LA went to overtime against Vancouver. LA fans probably enjoyed how that one ended. We'll hear from our buddy Eddie King. Or Eddie Garcia, excuse me. Well, maybe he wouldn't mind going by Eddie King. We'll hear from him coming up in a few minutes on Locked On NHL Game Night. Our show brought to you in part by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet hits. So head on over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, final segment. We're going to wrap the show out in the Pacific time zone for pretty much all of these games. I want to start, though, with Edmonton and Seattle, where the Oilers get a 4-0 win. Shoe that I feel like the Oilers really needed. They got a long time to think about, especially when you consider it was American Thanksgiving, not Canadian Thanksgiving. They got a long time to sit with Tuesday's debacle against the Dallas Stars. Well, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Zach Hyman. We talked about teams getting healthy. RNH is back. Hyman is playing better again. All four of those guys with multi-point efforts. All four of those guys score. Bounce back effort for Stuart Skinner, and for the Kraken, their third straight loss. Only 2 goals in that span. Edmonton really needed that.
They did, and I think that seeing Stuart Skinner rebound from getting pulled in his previous start was certainly the type of performance you were looking for. Skinner, who, let's face it, he had been rather under siege of criticism in Edmonton, and what turned into like a pretty delicate situation over there. So I would say my biggest takeaway from this game was certainly to Stuart Skinner, his performance and his ability to bounce back after getting pulled in the previous game, in which that, listen, Stuart Skinner, he struggled against the Dallas Stars, but then also to see him just exhibit the mental toughness in terms of turning the page and bouncing forward and moving forward, it was something that I think it was a welcome sight for the Oilers teammates and Oilers fans as well. And of course, we have Draisaitl and McDavid and RNH and Zach Hyman all scoring. Of course, it's going to make it even all the more easier for your goaltender as well.
2 goal nights for Tomas Hertl and Will Smith, but Vegas ultimately gets the win. They piled up an early lead 4-1. The Sharks fought back. They scored 2 goals in the second period to cut the lead down to 4-3. Really, really thrilling end to this game with the empty net. The Sharks were able to avoid a Vegas empty netter and came really close to punching it in. Couldn't quite get the job done. Vegas really, again, we talk about teams that really need wins that were playoff teams from a year ago. Vegas is I'm kind of shocked when I look at their record. It's a lot of overtime losses propping them up right now. They've only won 11 of 25 games this season, so needed to get one from a San Jose team who's been playing much, much better than most people predicted.
Exactly. And I think that, tonight, they certainly, play with a team that had a lot more urgency than you normally would probably see for a late November game. So I do think that this is the kind of game in which that if you are a Vegas Golden Knights fan, this is something that is more like we got the 2 points, we won and whatnot, which is it's just obviously important, but also I would even go as far as to say the fact that it came against a San Jose Sharks team that had been playing much better of late as well makes it even all the more impressive.
Los Angeles Kings get the win in overtime. They take down the Vancouver Canucks 2-1. This was another very low event game. There's a reason why the Kings are the kings of 1-goal games, as Eddie Garcia is going to tell us about here coming up. He's got the word on this one for Locked On Los Angeles Kings.
The LA Kings are the kings of the 1-goal game. They played their 18th 1-goal game of the season against the Vancouver Canucks in a 2-1 overtime victory, 8th straight game for the Kings. They've played a game that has been decided by 1 goal. They lost the previous night in Anaheim in a shootout to the Ducks. They come back, play a very sluggish game against the not-so-good Vancouver team. Andrei Kopitar scores the first goal for the Kings in this one. He's now 17 points away from passing Marcel Dion to become the Kings' all-time points leader. In overtime, it was Adrian Kempe getting the game winner, and the Kings again escape with a 2-1 win. Backup goalie Anton Forsberg, 19 saves in net in the victory. It was a weird game in many ways. In the first 5 minutes of this game, there were 3 video reviews, one for a puck over the goal line, and then one each, a challenge for offsides for each team that wiped away goals. And then as the game ended, the referees left the ice, came back on the ice for one final video review, and the goal did stand, and the Kings, in fact, squeak out a 2-1 overtime victory over the Vancouver Canucks.
The OT winner was pretty sick, too. I think Quentin Byfield was attempting to shoot it. It winds up coming off his stick as a pass and right onto the stick of Adrian Kempe, who gets his 3rd OT winner of the season. But if you go back even further, the 3 of those 3 players on that goal really did a phenomenal job with the zone entry after the Vancouver turnover, just to create that whole situation, because Vancouver had kind of owned possession in overtime, and then LA's counterattack was really fun to watch. It was a pretty cool goal. I didn't think it was goalie interference, and I'm glad that they didn't change it. I saw earlier this season, Igor Shesterkin on a very similar play. The Rangers challenged for interference, and they didn't win it. A very, very similar situation happened outside the crease. And so I felt for once we get a little consistency in this call.
Certainly. And I think that consistency was huge, but considering that it could have gone either way. And for the Kings, like, I do think that ultimately it benefited them. But as far as like the winning goal that was scored with a minute or 2 remaining in overtime by Adrian Kempe, that was a tremendous goal, a beautiful goal, just being in the right place at the right time. So I do think that that the Kings, like, certainly will, like, they will continue to look towards getting like more from Adrian Kempe now that he's fresh off signing the contract extension with the Kings. So I do think that it is something that they are going to be like benefiting from for the next several years.
No kidding. And real quick, the get right game for everybody right now is the Nashville Predators. Winnipeg had lost 4 straight since their superstar netminder went under the knife for a surgery that'll keep him out around 20 games or a quarter of the season. They had lost 4 games. Well, then they played the Nashville Predators, a 5-2 win for Winnipeg. Nino Niederreiter with 2 goals, including an empty netter in this one, and good win for Winnipeg. Nashville's season continuing to spiral out of control, Shu.
It certainly has, and it's strange considering that you would think that Barry Trotz, out of all people, would like rally the troops and get them fired up by calling out the team by saying that we need the guys to actually score more. I mean, this is a team that is still trying to find out exactly who and what they are, and like they are truly heading for trouble, and there's a reason why fans in Nashville are becoming like frustrated based on what they're seeing on the ice from this Nashville Predator team. But credit to the Winnipeg Jets, who on their part ended their 4-game losing streak, and especially off the back of a big night by Nino Niederreiter.
Hey guys, if you want complete coverage of your favorite NHL team, there is a Locked On NHL Team podcast and YouTube show for you, because we've got one for every NHL team. This show, Locked On NHL Game Night, is here for you each and every night of the regular season and playoffs, wrapping up the night in the NHL. It's me, it's Shu, it's Eddie Garcia. Don't forget to like and subscribe when you do join us. Like and subscribe to the show if you're watching on YouTube. We want to hear your thoughts on tonight's games, everything that we talked about. Let us know what you think in the comments section. Do you think Morgan Geekie is going to hit 60 goals this season? I want to know if you think he can sustain it. That will do for this episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. For Shukri Wrights, I'm Alex Wiederspiel. Thanks for listening and for watching Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network, your teams every day.